You're listening to episode number 110 of the Transform Your Life from the Inside Out podcast. In this episode, I talk about what I call your greatest advisor. So to find out what that is, stay tuned. Hi, I'm Jim Fortin, and you're about to start transforming your life from the inside out with this podcast. I'm widely considered the leader in subconscious transformation, and I've coached super achievers all around the world for over 25 years. Here, you're going to find no rah-rah motivation and no hype, because this podcast is a combination of brain science, transformational psychology, and ancient wisdom all rolled into one to take your life to levels you've never thought possible. If you're wanting a lot more in life, to feel better, to heal, to have peace of mind, to feel powerful and alive, and to bring more abundance and prosperity into your life, then this podcast is for you, because you're going to start learning how to master your mind and evolve your consciousness. And when you do that, anything you want then becomes possible for you. I'm glad you're here. Okay, so your greatest advisor. You know, most of us go through life and we're looking for mentors and people to ask for advice. And, you know, many of us are looking for advisors in many areas of our life, whether it be financial advice or, planning advice or whatever it is. But have you ever ask yourself, what is my greatest advisor that I have available? I can't even talk today. What is my greatest advisor that I have available to me in my life on a daily basis? Now, I'm going to go somewhere in this episode, and I know I've mentioned and I've said this before, but I'm going to share with you today what I've learned to be my greatest advisor in my life. And I'm going to talk a fair amount about shamanism and my brother-in-law, Don Javier, the shaman, and what I've learned from him in this episode. So what I've learned to be, and I learned this from Don Javier, what I learned to be my greatest advisor is death. Now, that's probably not what you're expecting, but I've learned that death is meaning all of us, but I've taken it to heart for many years. Death is my greatest advisor. And the reason why, and the reason that I say that is so many of us come to the planet, and I've been there. I'm not there at this point in my life, but I remember even in my 30s, I never, ever, ever thought about leaving the planet anytime soon. And as I'm getting older, I'm not that old. I'm 55. But I look at my life in a different way now, in that, any day on this planet could be my last day. So I work from death as my greatest advisor. And the next question that I have for you and what I want to share with you is, how does death advise us? Okay, I'm going to jump around in this episode because as I was putting this together in my mind, I kind of had a hard time thinking about how I wanted to organize it all. So I'm going to jump around a little bit. Just stay with me. I'll tie it all together for you at the end of this episode. I've said before, and I want to reiterate a metaphor that I've used before that I learned from my brother-in-law, Don Javier, the shaman. And it was just he and I, we were in the kitchen talking. This was about 3 or 4 years ago. And he said, imagine your life like a rental car. And I've probably used this same metaphor 3 or 4 times in the podcast. You go on vacation. And, when you fly somewhere, you go on vacation, you get off the airplane and you get your rental car if you don't have one, and nobody's picking you up. And I'm just laughing at that, but it's very simple. We just, we go to the rental car place and we get our rental car. And then what we do is we drive around for 3, 4, or 5 days a week, however long we're traveling and on vacation. And then what we do is we take the rental car back and we drop it off and we go home. And the way that I look at life is that our bodies are just on loan to us. We're just renting them. So when I incarnated on this planet, I got this body, which is my rental car. And I'm going to drive it around for however many years I'm on the planet. My intention is to be on the planet in human years for quite some years. But the thing is this, when it's time for me to go home, meaning leave the planet, I'm going to drop the rental car off and I'm going to go home. But most of us, we never look at it that way. We look at our lives like they're infinite. We're going to be here forever and we're going to own this rental car forever. And that's just not the case. So as I said, I'm going to hop around here and I've just got questions running through my mind, the things I've learned over the years from being with Don Javier. But a question, he and I were talking one day and he said something to me that just floored me. And again, I'm going to weave a lot into this episode. And also, I don't think it's going to be that long, but definitely I'm going to weave some stuff into it. But he said something to me that just really flabbergasted my thinking, my mental mechanisms. And he said to me, he goes, "Have you ever considered what you gave up to come here?" And I ask you that same question. Have you ever considered what you gave up to come to this planet? Because the truth is this, and I'm not going to go into it in this episode, is, Einstein's proven this in physics, is that you cannot die. You literally, whether you want to believe it or not, it doesn't matter to me. It's a truism. It's physics, is that you go from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. Not only that, which I'm not going to get into in this episode, have you even asked yourself, you know what? If that is true in your mind, in your reality, that I go from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime, have you asked yourself where those lifetimes are in the universe? So I'll just plant that seed for right now. But back to the question is, what did you give up to come here? Because in the way that I look at this metaphor is, imagine, for example, that you wanted to take all the water in the ocean here on planet Earth. You wanted to take all of that water and put it into a 1 gallon container. Well, to me, that's what we gave up. We gave up the totality of the ocean. I mean, that expansiveness on this planet to cram ourselves into a 1 gallon container. So you gave up the totality of you without even recognizing you gave it up because you forgot about it when you got to the planet. You gave it up when you got here. Now, what I mean that you gave it up, there's another example that I was taught many years ago, is that the great grand mystery, the great grand creator, maybe you call this what I call the great grand mystery, maybe you call this God, but we're all in this room, metaphorically speaking, and God said, who wants to go on a great adventure? And everyone's raising their hands. They're going, I want to go, I want to go, I want to go. And God says, okay. And the great grand mystery says, all right, you know what? You all get to go, but there's only, there's some caveats. And the caveats are that I'm going to put a bag over your head. You're going to forget who you are, and you're going to forget about me when you get there. And then we're born onto this little bitty planet called planet Earth, and we forget everything that I just shared with you, the totality of you that you gave up before you got here. And then what many of us do, and I know because I've been there, what many of us do is we spend our entire lifetimes in these little bitty, I mean minuscule models of reality. And that could be 30 years, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years. We spend our entire lifetime on this planet and a little bitty minuscule model of reality on this planet, and we don't even consider the totality of us, like I was talking about earlier, the totality of the ocean that we cram into a 1 gallon jug. And that's what many of us have done. So as I said, let me hop around here because I'll tie this all together. At least that's my intention at the end of this episode. But we're not here for very long on this planet, and because we have these illusions of time, which I've done another episode on time. Time does not exist. Time is a human construction. But I want you to imagine this for a moment. I want you to imagine, in however many years you've been on this planet, I want you to imagine a single bolt of lightning that you have seen in your lifetime. Now, it can be yesterday. It can be this amazing bolt of lightning you saw in the car last week. It can be, 20 years ago, which you would remember anyway. But I want you to think about that bolt of lightning and how quickly you've seen it in the course of this lifetime. I mean, you might see that bolt of lightning for what? 1 second, maybe, in the course of your lifetime now. Well, the course of your lifetime now, relative to the totality of you, is like that lightning strike in your life now. I mean, it goes in a flash. So while you're here on the planet, you've heard people say, and it's a big meme on Facebook and Instagram and everything else, but you hear people saying life is short, yet people don't really live from that place. They don't really embrace that life is short. It just seems like it's something, good to say, and it makes sense in the moment. But your life on this planet is akin to that lightning bulb in the context of your entire life while you're on this planet. It goes in a heartbeat. And what I want you to start thinking about in this episode is your mortality. Meaning, I don't care who you are listening. right now. I don't care if you're 17. I don't care if you're 12. You're not going to be on this planet that long. Even if you're here 100 years, that's going to go in a flash. I tell people, and especially younger people, that you go to bed at 25 and you're going to wake up at 50. And that's been the story of my life. And we metaphorically, we go to bed and we wake up and we're like, where did all the time go? And I read something a couple of days ago. I think age is literally is just a number. I mean, I'm 55, and I think 55 is the new 35. I feel really, really young. Most people say that I look young for my age as well. But I was reading something a couple of days ago, and it was not on CNN, but it was a CNN survey. And they asked people, at what age do people become old? And and the age they picked was 57. And I'm like, bummer, I'm about to be an old person. And I was just laughing at that because it's just a number that we humans give to something. But I want you to start thinking about in this episode about your mortality. You're not going to be on this planet that long. And in full transparency, even working with a shaman for a lot of years, for the early part of that, I squandered a lot of my life. And I have no regrets about that because it is what it is. I did what I did, and I didn't take my apprenticeship as fully as I possibly could back many years ago. So what I want you to look at is, where do you squander your life? And I'm going to go to some very just inane, very simple, very banal things. But do you squander your life watching Netflix or watching all this nonsensical stuff on, and by the way, I do watch Netflix and everything else like the rest of us, but I ask you, do you squander your life watching stuff like that? And here in the US, I think the average American spends, I don't know, I mean, like on Sunday, they spend 4 hours watching Netflix alone. And you know what? I'm gonna come to your defense and mine that sometimes we need to veg out, we need to chill out, and I completely get that. But where do you squander your life? A place that a lot of people squander their life is in their emotions. Not that we don't have emotions, but they squander their life being trapped in their emotions. So I want to ask you, which I've done on other episodes, and again, bear with me as I kind of weave through this episode, is where do you spend a majority, mentally speaking, a majority of your time in this life? And then look at, is that a valuable investment of my time? Is that a valuable investment in my spiritual growth? And I don't mean dogmatic growth, but I mean spiritual growth. Is that a good use of the evolution of me while I'm on this planet? And again, being fully transparent, I am fully transparent in saying that I squandered an early part of my life and just floundering around in life, not knowing what I wanted to do with my life, not knowing where I wanted to go, and not using my time wisely, or as I deem it to be wisely today. I also want to address also, somebody wrote me an email. My team actually gets all the emails. If you send me an email, it's not going to come to me directly. It's going to go to the team. And somebody said that I shouldn't apologize. It's simply just an old habit. Apologizing about, like, for example, in this episode. And the reason why I say, well, just bear with me. I mean, I don't have notes on the episode. It's going to just meander itself, and it's gonna go until I deem it's at the end of the episode. But I'm just saying, stay with me and bear with me, and I'm apologizing for that because sometimes I know that some episodes are more cogent than others. Some of you are more succinct than others. But the way that I look at it is really, it is telling you what I really feel about it. It is what it is. You want to listen? Listen. You don't want to listen? Don't listen. It's entirely up to you. But I also look at me, and this is something my brother-in-law, Don Javier, has said before, is that so many of us get caught. And I'm going to come back to mortality and all that kind of stuff we're talking about, but so many waste, and I've talked about this in the podcast, we waste our lives while we're on the planet, which is not very long. We waste our lives caught in and a word that I use is tonal, Tonal. That's Toltec, meaning like ego, meaning like, for example, my ego, my tonal would be Jim Fortin. It's the skin that I walk around in. It's my identity. It's my air quote past history, all that kind of stuff. But we spend so much of our life in our tonal, and we literally don't even recognize that our tonal is only like 1% of what we are. And then what we do, meaning that the totality of us, like I'd mentioned, the gallon jug and the ocean, instead of actually engaging with the ocean, we engage with the gallon jug. And then we're like, oh my God, my jug is running out of water. My jug is running out of water. My jug is running out of water, not even recognizing we're the totality of the ocean. And when I say jug is running out of water, what I mean by that is we think our life and our time is running out. So what I want you to look at also, our request and our time here is that, and I guess what I'm getting to is how do you invest your life? Now, something that I've not mentioned here in the podcast, Don Javier does the majority of his work with me and anyone that he works with in Dreamtime. And by the way, Dreamtime is no different than daytime. It's simply our matter of perception. And that's a whole different podcast episode beyond dreaming, is that we think when we go to sleep and we're in dream time, we think that we're out. No, you're alive as what you are right now. It's just a different reality for you. But we do, and he does what's called candle work, meaning he works with the elements, earth, wind, fire, and water. And I started candle work with him in 1996, actually September of 1996. And that very first night in dream time, I had a dream, and we were in ancient Roman garb. And he walked up to me, and he had a sword. And in the dream, I'm like, hey, back then I called him Javier, not Don Javier. He walked up, and he had a sword. And like I said, we were in ancient Roman garb. And he had a sword, and he stabbed me in the chest, and I died. And in the next air quotes scene, meaning the next, image in the dream, he pulls back a curtain, and I'm alive. And he said, see, I told you that death is just an illusion. And that was one of the very first dreams and the very first night that I had that I started working with him. And I've been putting that together for many years in my mind. And I've come to greater awareness and realizations over the years. But my leaving this planet, my exiting this planet, or you exiting this planet, is nothing more. It's going to happen physically, but it's an illusion because death is an illusion. You, as I've mentioned before, Einsteinian physics, the law of the conservation of energy and the law of the conservation of matter, you can not die. Meaning you, the ocean, the metaphor that I've given you, your soul, lives in totality. DX was once talking to me, and I still cannot get my mind around this. So I don't try to get my mind around it because I can't get my mind around it. But he said to me, he goes, how old do you think you are? And I said, I don't know, 1 billion years, 2 billion, meaning my soul, 3 billion years, I don't know. And he said, no. He goes, you are over a Google years old. And like I said, I couldn't even get my mind around it. I mean, how do you even fathom a one with 100 zeros behind it in the totality of you? So I haven't tried to get my mind around it because there's no way to do it. But what I'm sharing with you and what you're getting, hopefully getting, is that your life is a continuum. And this is something else. As I said, I'm kind of hopping all over the place in this podcast, and I will wrap up with somewhere when we're done with this episode. But these are all things he said to me over the years, when he said, you know what? There's nothing to be afraid of, because when you recognize that your life is a continuum, then what's there to be afraid of? So when I look at continuum, I look at me, I'm always going to exist. My soul is always going to be. Maybe different lives. And let me add something there that he said one time to me. He said there is not such a thing as past lives, because that would infer time, and there is no such thing as time. And don't even get me started on that, because it's over my pay grade to even explain that. I want to say pay grade, meaning metaphorically my level of understanding for where I am in this lifetime. But he said and many of us use the word past lives. He said there is no such thing as a past life, simply different lives. Because the one air quote life is the continuum of your soul, of you. That is the one life that actually then incarnates into different, I'm going to say, different beingness, different, I'm going to use this word intentionally, bags of skin or bodies of skin or different carbon, but it's the totality of you that is infinite. Now, here on the planet, though, as I said, and the purpose of this podcast is we come to this planet and we think, oh, I look in the mirror, that's me. No, that's not me. It's just one aspect of it's where I am right now. It's my point of reference in time and space. Jim Fortin is on this planet right now physically in time and space. Same thing with you. Or if you weren't on this planet, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast, I suppose. But then what we do, and this is the point of the podcast, what we do is we hop in the bag of skin, and somebody wrote me a note and said you shouldn't call it a bag of skin because you should honor it. Well, it's a word, it's a phrase. So I will honor calling it a bag of skin because it is carbon. We hop into this beingness, this physicalness that we are. And then what we do erroneously is we define our entire existence by this little 1 gallon container that we're in for a lifetime, for however many years, 10, 20, 30, 80, 100, and we make that our totality. And then, like I said, we're afraid. We're afraid that the gallon jug's going to run out of water. We're afraid we're going to run out of time. Well, guess what? There is no time. You're not going to run out of time. You're going to transition. You're going to be a different form. You're going to ascend. You're going to actually transcend from the physical body, but you are never going to, air quote, die. So what if this? Because my objective in every episode is to create transformation and shift in your life. Instead of trying to avoid death, which is what so many people do, it's what we call it as human beings, is death. So instead of trying to avoid that, what would happen if you embraced it? Now, I know I'd mentioned recently, and I don't know when because I create so much content, it runs together a lot of times. But something I've learned from Don Javier over the years is that, now, mind you, again, my intention is to be on this planet for some time because I have work to do. But something I've learned from him is to embrace my mortality. And he often says that today is a good day to die. Now, most of us work from the opposite as, oh my God, that's the last thing I want. And then people do all these things to try to artificially extend. And I'm not saying you shouldn't. Okay, let me be very clear there. People do all these things to, when I say artificially extend their life. I was watching this commercial recently. It was on something for cancer. And it said if you take this cancer, basically by taking all these pills, it could kill you, but it could extend your life for anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. And my thought is why would you take something that's going to make you worse to get 4 to 6 weeks out of it? It doesn't make any sense. Go ahead and ascend and leave the body and go back to the totality of you and what you gave up to come here, as opposed to being here on this planet for 4 more weeks being in pain. But that's my whole point, is that people so much hang on to this ego that we have, this who they think they are, and it's not who they are. I remember, I'm going to come back to the point, but I remember DX and I were talking, and we were on summer family vacation a lot of years ago, and just he and I were talking, and he said, you know what, if you dropped dead right in front of me right now, I'm okay with that. And I knew what he meant. I did, but I'm kind of like, brother-in-law, come on. I mean, what do you mean? Hey, what are you saying here? But I knew what he meant. And he said, there is no death. He goes, I'm going to see you again. Might not be tomorrow physically, but I'll contact, they didn't say contact, but we'll communicate energetically. But he goes, I'm completely fine with you dropping dead right next to me. And I've always watched him live from that place in his own life and lives around him. People that have exited the planet, I've always watched him live from that place of higher beingness and higher knowingness. So back to what I have in this podcast for you. I'm not asking you to invite your death. Let's be very clear. I'm not saying that you should be nonchalant, and I'm not saying that you should be carefree with your health and take unnecessary chances. And I think that's implied, but I just want to share that with you. I'm also, jokingly or not, on TV recently, not TV, in the news, I'm not suggesting you drink any kind of disinfectant or anything that would be harmful to your body. So this is where I would suggest you work from, is that you're grateful for your days. You know what? I'm grateful that I'm on this planet, and I want to be on this planet as long as I'm able to serve and as long as I'm growing. But you know what? At some point, there's going to come a time, air quote time, that it's my time to leave the planet, and I embrace that. So why I'm sharing all this with you is because when you live from that place and you live from, you know what, my time here is not infinite, and I'm going to leave at some point. When you work from that place, you start working from a different place. And in that moment, when you accept that, you know what, I'm going to, air quote, die, I'm going to leave the planet, and then you start thinking about, okay, what can I do while I'm here? How can I live while I'm here? in that moment, death becomes for you the title of this episode, and it becomes your greatest advisor. Don Javier's mentor, shamans have, obviously, they're called benefactors in shamanism, and the vein of shamanism that I'm on that path. But Don Javier's mentor, called a benefactor, once said to me, he said, the most powerful thing that I ever did was I decided what I needed to do before I crossed over. And I knew what he meant, but to further explain, meaning before he crossed over from the physical to the non-physical. And when he said, I decided what I needed to do before I crossed over. And what I'm saying to you is to use that line of crossing over as your advisor. What are you to do while you're here? And I'm going to share something with you. And this hit me hard many, many years ago. I woke up one morning and I have altars all over the house. And I woke up and I was lying on my stomach, and it's, one of those mornings you just kind of open your eyes and things are quiet, and you just kind of open your eyes and absorb your surrounding. And I opened my eyes, and one of my altars was in front of me, and it dawned on me in that moment that I'm only on this planet for two reasons. That's it. I'm on this planet to evolve and grow, because we learn different things when well, let me put it this way. I was taught that we can only grow and evolve while we're in matter. So I'm on the planet to evolve and grow. And then secondly, I'm on this planet to serve. And that's where I live from. Literally. I have all the things in my lifetime, and I don't attach to them. Literally, I do not attach to them, and I promise. I have all the things that people would aspire to. I mean, I have a beautiful home in Sedona, Arizona. I've got a nice home in Dallas, Texas. I mean, I drive a Porsche because I like to drive. And actually, in the last couple of months, I might have put like 2 miles on it, literally. But I have the trappings. I have the financial security. I have those things. And guess what? They're just simply things in my life. But I know this. My life is not here to acquire things. It's not. I'm simply on this planet, and my time here is to evolve, to learn, to become, and to serve, meaning serve other people on this planet with my gifts. And I know that when I'm here and I grow as much as I can, and as I said, and by the way, I don't feel bad about it. I squandered a lot of my earlier life. You know what? I wasn't then where I am now. Now I use my life, and hopefully you are as well. But what applies to me applies to you, and you can try to poke holes on that, and you can say, well, Jim, I'm here for this or that, but I'm going to assure you to what I just alluded to a minute ago about stuff that I have in my life, and it's nothing more than stuff. You're not here for the gold watch. You're not here for all these things to work a lifetime, and then guess what? You've worked an entire lifetime for some company. And then you know what? You leave the lifetime, and then what have you really learned this lifetime? How much have you grown this lifetime? Oh my gosh, there's so much I could say in this episode about people just coming to this lifetime and not even growing because they're so caught in human dogma. And they spend their entire life just trapped in human dogma. But the thing is this, they don't even know they're in human dogma. I see so many people. I live in Dallas, Texas, and I see so many people. I'll metaphorically say, where are you? And they'll say, well, I'm in Dallas. And I'm like, no, you're not in Dallas. You're in Houston, 350 miles away, which I think that's how far it is away. And they're like, no, Jim, I'm in Dallas. No, you're not. You're in Houston, but you don't even know that you're in Houston. So let me come back to what I'm talking about here in the podcast is perhaps you want to, take this as a takeaway that you're here. You're here to grow and to serve. Now, to the point of this podcast, what can you do with death as your advisor, meaning that you're going to leave the planet at some point? How can that advisement actually advise you to how you're to grow and how you're to serve while you are here? Because so many people, somebody messaged me that I've known for a long time yesterday. Well, Jim, despite your podcast, I'm still doing corporate stuff because of security. Well, I've known this guy for 15 years, and he still doesn't get it. That is ridiculous because there is no security. I mean, you can work a corporate job and get smacked by a bus tomorrow. I mean, you can work a corporate job creating all the security, and guess what? Something happens to you tomorrow. There is no security. So with knowing that you're going to leave the planet at some point, how can that serve as an advisor to you to use your time well while you're here, and to use your time to grow, and to use your time to serve? Something else. You see so many memes on Facebook, and these memes all say things like, what would be your 5 regrets if you left the planet or you died today? And there was even something recently a year ago or so that I saw on Facebook where it said, people on their deathbeds, these are their 5 regrets. And somebody once asked me, Jim, what would your regrets be if you left the planet tomorrow? They would be none. Why? Because guess what? I made the choices that I made while I was here. Why would I regret something that's already air quote in the past? It simply is what it is. And there's no regrets. I am where I am. And the same with you. So there's no need, if I let me go here. Let me lay this out for you. What if I said right now to you, let me concretize this. What if I said right now, if you were to leave the planet tomorrow, I'm just jokingly what I call the head office calls tomorrow and says, hey, it's time to pack your bags. You got to come home tomorrow. What regrets would you have? I want you to fully consider that. What regrets would you have? Now, what could you start doing today? And who could you start being today? And what ways could you start showing up today in life? So guess what? You wouldn't have those regrets. I want to go back to something that I said earlier, is when Don Javier's mentor said to me, he said that the most important decision he ever made was, what he had to do before he crossed over. I'm going to pose that same thing to you. What are you to do while you're on the planet? Because let your death and your mortality be your advisor to advise you to do those things and to be that person. I see so many people, and especially here in the U.S. because it's where I live, they waste their lives. They waste their lives for the economic security. I have seen so many people that have so much what I call artistry in them, but they're afraid to let it out. Why? Because they're chasing security. They can paint, they can dance, they can sing, they can do all these things that would be a contribution to the world, but they hide it all because they're literally, speaking of hiding, they're hiding in their corporate jobs, and they're hiding in ways and things to make money. And they waste their gifts. They waste their artistry. So, your takeaway this week is this. I'm going to use the word ascension, meaning you're going to one day, and this is a fact, you're going to one day, at some point, you're going to ascend out of the physical body that you're in. How can you use that ascension, which is 100% inevitable? How can you use that ascension to advise you as to how best to invest your life while you're on this planet? Okay, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you over on the next episode. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to this entire podcast. If you're the kind of person who likes to help others, then share this with your friends and family. If you found value, they will too. So please share via your social media channels. Also, if you have questions, I'm here to assist. You can email me questions to support@jimfortin.com, and I may even use your question for a future podcast episode. Also, if you want transformational content like this daily, connect with me on Instagram. My Instagram name is I am Jim Fortin. Finally, I do have a personal request. I believe that we're all here to help others and to grow and evolve ourselves. Together, you and I, let's help more people. If you would please leave a review on iTunes, and a good one, by the way. I'd be grateful, and through your assistance together, we can transform more lives. Thanks for listening.